My friends, another episode of Sales Chatter. Now we're having a few tech problems in the background, so DJ is going to join us in a minute. But we wanted to make sure we go live at 9 every day, and we wanted to make sure we were not late for y'all this morning. So today we are going to do a massive deep dive into sales training. We've got a great sales trainer, Chad. Here we go, brother. You get the victory today, my man. We're going to take a deep dive into sales training. We're going to take a deep dive into strategies and tactics, what shifts, what moves, and what are the core pillars of sales that are never going to change. To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly. Jeff, my man, you hit it, but actually Chad had beat you to the punch this morning, my man. Richard was that was Lisa. Richard was a quick follow-up, then Lisa, then Antoine. Welcome, everybody. You know what? Today's going to be an awesome day. We got, as I said earlier, we got some technical difficulties going on in the background. You also, DJ is trying to help Bruce work through it. But today we're going to talk about sales strategy, sales techniques, and just the function of sales as a whole and how certain things shift. You know, when you talk about how do we connect with prospects better, right? If you look at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, when it first started, video introduction was like the key. There was huge open rates, huge reply rates. Everybody was replying to video. Now, video's kind of been saturated when it comes to introduction. It's a great follow-up tool, but the introduction, the open rates, and kind of the replies drop, right? If you look at what's happening, like specifically on even LinkedIn, right? Sitting down with, here we go. I think we're good in the background. Sitting down with people and they say these specific posts are changing and it's going more towards the personal side, becoming more of a social media platform than a business platform. So sales is a consistent shift. So today we're going to dive deep into the different shifts and what stays the same. So welcome, DJ. We got this thing figured out from Bruce there. So Bruce, welcome.
What's up?
Bruce, welcome. Bruce broke the first rule of sales. He was late. Sorry.
Dramatic entrance.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. That's even better. Hey, Bruce, welcome to the show, my friend. We were just kind of
Thanks, guys.
Going over a little bit of the introduction on, what changes in sales? Where do the goalposts move? What stays the same? Often I know there's going to be a lot of, hey, third is good. Yes, absolutely. Third is good. You still get a participation trophy, Richard, so you're good. And I think we're going to give participation trophies out to the top 10. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In sales, the goalpost is constantly moving.
It's always moving.
I was just saying to the audience before you guys jumped on that, and I remember when COVID first hit, I started making connections on LinkedIn because I'd already gone to like the video kind of platform about 6 or 8 months before COVID. And my response was up in the low 90s, high 80s for people responding with video. And now, if you're getting a 23, 26 response rate, you're like a superstar, but there's core pillars of sales, regardless of the industry, that never change, right? People would say the authenticity, the desire to help. I think for me, those are probably the two biggest ones, is the desire to actually help the customer achieve the goal. And, I've had a couple of students this week say, you know what, Dan? I'm speaking to more customers and they don't even know what the goal is anymore because the post just keeps moving and they're like, oh my gosh, I was shooting for this yesterday. And today so I'm really excited. In a couple of weeks, got John Brewer coming back on who,
yes.
So Bruce, John is the head logistics for all OTR over the road, for Hardee's and Carl Jr.'s for CK restaurants. Okay. And so, the volume that this guy sees push through and like kind of what are the standards for him. It'll be interesting to see what's kind of changed in the last couple of months for him. What his goal? Yeah, it's going to be a good one, DJ. So without further ado, brother, talk to us. Tell us what you think, kind of the core pillars are and then where you see the goalposts moving.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
so
background as well.
What's that?
I was just said, and a little background, obviously. Yeah. I know you were in.
Yeah, so I came to the industry straight out of college. Worked for TQL as an intern, pounding 100 calls a day, just making the grind, and fell in love with the industry. It's addicting. It's the chase is real. The chase it's like a drug, and after college, joined TQL full time, was a top 5% account at TQL for 13 years. Moved a couple loads in my life, and then now I have the opportunity to serve others. So there's a lot of freight broker courses out there, and they're great. They're handy. It gets your feet wet. Kind of what I specialize in, and what our company does is that graduate level sales, the higher level, like building teams and processes, and really taking a one-man show to a 30, 40 person show, and really developing structure and accountability and culture. And it's amazing. So when you say moving the goalpost, you are 1,000% correct. It's always shifting. There's always something. I remember watching the Olympics when Usain Bolt won like his last gold medal, and they said, why do you keep going? He's like, well, I have to, because if I don't keep training, somebody else in my country is trying to take my spot right now. So you've always got to be sharpening your saw. You've always got to be learning new techniques, new strategies, thinking outside the box. And a lot of that, guys, transportation and logistics is almost tunnel vision. All the other industries that sales plays a role in, they're getting input all around them. Whereas in logistics, it's more of a narrow path. People say, I just got to make $100 a day. I just got to have 2 hours of talk time. I just got to grind. Well, the ones that you see succeed without having to do that, reach out for other opportunities. They're thinking outside the box. They're getting creative. They're selling on the customer's need, not what they think they need. When I talk to people about, how do you present a solution to a customer, right? And a lot of times you work with young guys and they just want to, I'm so-and-so with this company. We do this, that, and they go straight into the presentation piece without uncovering the customer's needs, wants, desires, even if they ship full truckload. They just think that anybody they call, they can serve, and that's not necessarily the case. But you got to sell, when you get to the presentation piece, when you're selling your facts, your features, your functions, and why people should work with you, it must be tailored to the prospect's needs, right? And the example I like to use with that is, imagine you go to a car dealership and you go to the car salesman, you say, hey, Dan, I want a black car with black interior. And the car salesman says, great, I got the perfect car for me. Come look at this. And he shows you a white car with brown interior, and it's a Volkswagen, and you wanted a Chevy. And he's like, look at the tires. These tires are awesome, but look at the hood. Look at that engine. It's beautiful. And then look at the trunk. You could fit 2 sets of golf clubs in there. Guys, what's the likelihood that you're going to buy that car? You're not, because the salesman sold you what he thought you wanted, not what you said that you wanted. So understanding your customer's needs, wants, and desires is crucial, and thinking outside the box. So right now, the market's going through a shift, right? Trucks are becoming more plentiful. It's easier to cover freight. You can no longer, well, maybe not yet, but in the near future, you're not going to be able to sell on, hey, I've got this truck, the who has the truck wins the load. It's now everybody's got a truck, right? So your ability to capture your prospects' interests and convert them from a lead to a prospect to a customer is going to have to change, because you can't sell the way you did during COVID, because now capacity is opening up and everybody's going to have trucks. So what's your new approach? What's your new strategy and technique that's going to capture that customer's interest and say, you know what? Yeah, DJ, he's got something there, right?
It's interesting that it's interesting that analogy, or that process, that thought process came up this morning. So
yeah,
I'm like DJ will tell you, we're data geeks. And I'm constantly monitoring the market. And, over the last 3 weeks, I've probably had 50 to 60 prospects come back. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I ask through my sales, because I still do sales now, you and I are pretty much in the same field. I do sales training, executive coaching, as well as the show. And it's very interesting what's coming back from traffic managers. It's not a matter of capacity. It's not a matter of costing. It's a matter of I'm sick of being screwed around. And so because every time somebody says, I'm not interested, Dan, I always ask, I'm dying to know, like, I'm a data geek. I put a link to Sales Chatter. Here's our show. We're always looking at market data. What does your incumbent do so well that you're not even interested in having a conversation? And I'm going to say out of the last couple of weeks, let's just call it 50. I'll go on the low end. 45 of them have come back and said, I am just sick of being screwed in the market. And when I go back and ask a reply question, it's, what do you mean by that? Like, just please. And obviously I'm being very polite because I'm taking up their time and there's kind of zero benefit I can add to their side because they're just not interested. And the majority of them that come back for the third time, I'm going to say probably in upwards of 95% of them that come back for the third time, say what we've been through over the last 2 years where people making false promises is incredible. And there's a major, which is why I'm really interested in having John back on, because you can imagine the amount of volume of calls that he must get, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
And it is amazing the way the market and shippers, regardless of capacity, regardless of saying, you know what, like, oh my God, I need you. It's like, you know what, stop fucking me around and let's do business authentically and honestly.
Yeah.
And it was actually in my 30 years I've been in this industry, 29, I've never seen that. Where it's at, typically, so if you look back at like kind of 2018 timeframe, right? So you're 13 years in the industry, so you were in it in 2018. When ELDs hit, it's like customers were begging for trucks, right?
Yeah,
like you look at Texas when it was like 5-1, 5 loads to every one truck. And I mean, at one point, I think in Texas, it was like 8-1 was what the DAT was reporting. And it's like they're begging for it. And I don't know if, I'm still yet to figure that piece of the data out, Bruce. Like, is it because of that where they just said, okay, enough, right? If you look at 2018, 19, 20, 22, like the last 4 to 5 years, the logistics industry has been on the most insane roller coaster. I'd be a freak.
This is my intro. This is my rookie season in this thing. I started at
when? In 2018? Oh, in 2017.
Yeah, that's when I started.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So you started just before ELD hit.
Yeah, so
what a time to be alive.
I got to see just what it was kind of normally like, and then all of a sudden, boom, this is actually what it is. No, it's not.
16 and 17 were decent years. Like, 16 rates were still at kind of a 2013 level. 17, they started to climb a little bit, but 2018 just went bonkers. I mean, I remember being at a TCA. It was actually the TCA event where I met Dean Crook, and we were when he was up on stage, and he was up on stage with some massive Canadian carriers, not as big as the US carriers, but like Dan Einwacker from Challenger and all that, and major carriers. And all of them, the consensus was all of them are like, if you guys are doing anything for 2018, 19, meaning using that as benchmarks, he goes, you're wrong. You can't use it as a benchmark. But it's funny, like, what's the last year you can use as a benchmark then? Because 18 was an anomaly. Right. Then everybody bought so much equipment and they were delivering it so fast. 19 became just a slaughter fest. 2020 COVID, right? Like, what year can we as a supplier use as a benchmark?
You guys both having way longer experience than me in this. My just rookie mindset, only being in this 5 years, what I've seen, obviously the craziness like you're mentioning, but it seems like that same repeating term, which I think life is a pattern, but you guys saying about, these traffic managers, these guys not wanting to be screwed around anymore. It seemed like that was kind of the vibe and the feel, and that's what opened the gates. It seemed like for me, the beginning of 2018, middle 2018, everybody was willing to talk to anybody because they're like, this dude's fucking me or whatever's going on.
Yeah, they need
now
capacity.
It seems like that same thing again. So is that more what is causing this?
So I think
go ahead, Bruce. Share your thoughts, because I think it's a very good question, DJ.
I think it's an interesting paradigm of us versus them mentality, right? The brokers versus the customers, and as markets shift, this comes up is like, hey, these brokers are screwing me around. I don't want to use them anymore. But then the customers, when everything shifts back, it's like, oh, the customer's just trying to screw me. I'm not going to do business with them anymore. And instead of creating like true synergy, everybody's in it for themselves, right? The brokers are in it for their dollar. The customers are trying to, hit their bonus by reducing costs, efficiencies. So there's very much an us versus them mentality that it is toxic. And I think that's where a lot of this, like, I'm happy with who I'm using because they don't want to take a risk on somebody new. They may be fed up to the end of who they're using, but they don't want to take a risk on bringing on somebody new because it does take time to build that trust and that rapport and credibility. And if you can't provide something that nobody else is already doing, then you're just another broker that's going to do the same thing. And so customers have a little bit of a backlash of like, I've been burned once, right? You go touch a hot stove, you're going to touch it again. So I think there is a very much a us versus them, just natural shift that takes place.
And I'll dovetail a couple of things to that, DJ. So,
Yeah.
So in 2018, there was a lot of what I coined capacity clients that people were getting. People were landing clients at a dime a dozen. Like every 5 phone calls, you were landing a customer. And it was because if you had trucks, you can get business.
Yeah.
It was really what it was. In 2019, it was and this was the real, so 2018 in all my years, even when exchange rates went like 20 points US Canada to swing another way. I mean, I remember one point it was 1.56. And I mean, I remember the company I was working for, the controller waited 2 days to cash checks. And like there was hundreds of thousands of dollars lost in exchange. Like that's how bad that the market was fluctuating. So lived through that. And then 2018 hit. And 2018 was the most dynamic year because of ELD and everything changing. Now, here's the backside of that. Most large carriers were already on ELD for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when this news broke, I know most of the people I was speaking to were like, I think it's bullshit. I think people are capitalizing on the fact that there's a new rule in place. Like when hours of service changed and Walmart needed 12,000 new drivers overnight to fulfill their supply chain and all this other stuff, it was not as big of a hit on the industry. So what happened was you would make a sales call. You say, do you have a truck? For sure. Yeah. Okay. You'll get the load if you got a truck because people needed to move their stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Then in 2019, it went back to exactly what Bruce said, where it was like I'm going to make it back now because I kind of feel I got screwed in 2018.
Oh yeah.
Which I understand how some shippers would feel like that. So it went back to, I mean, I remember Toronto, Montreal at like, $1,100-$1,200, and within 2 weeks it was $350. Like, I mean, we're talking huge shifts because there were so many trucks. And so 2 things happened in 2018, or 3, but 2 major things. The first one is more trucks were put on the road than ever before. And number 2, shippers got real friggin' smart at shipping goods. Because when you're paying, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, 20, 30 times the amount to move your goods, you get real smart, real fast on how to move your product cheaper. Right. Yep. So, and then the third one was trucking in 2019, trucking companies were going out of business. It's a dime a dozen. It's these capacity clients, is a big thing that we're seeing today as well. Yep. And at the beginning of COVID, a lot of people got capacity clients. You have trucks, I will give you freight. And it was this kind of, I've got the truck. When Bruce at the beginning, when you said, Bruce, there's always somebody hungrier, or somebody that's always coming up behind you. That's why most people lose their customers, is because they don't consistently give them that attention that they had when they first came in. Right. We get complacent. We think the customer's not going anywhere. Never does a sales rep, let me rephrase that. Most of the time, no sales rep goes into the office in the morning thinking there's somebody coming up my tail, somebody coming up that's going to do and serve my customer at a higher level. I better step up my game. Yeah. We don't. We think, and for decades, I walked into the office thinking, how can I give myself a raise? How can I make more money today? And whether that meant, closing a new deal, raising rates to cut. Like, one thing I never did was cut my carrier costs. I consistently raised rates to customers. Right. Mm-hmm. But it was never a matter of how can I serve my the thought process was never, how can I serve my customer at an even higher level today to make sure I keep them? And it's going to be a bloodbath. You're going to see a lot of companies that stick with and develop the relationships with people that serve them. And that's why every day on the show we preach, like, just find the goals of your customers. And it brings me to a question that Jeff said, which is a really good one, Jeff. And we can always count on you for the good ones, brother. Yeah. So Jeff's asking, how does a salesman uncover something in logistics if they've never worked in a logistics operation and come up with that solution? There's much more involved in logistics operations besides moving freight. Do you train a salesperson on the other side of the fence? Yeah. How do you train a salesperson on the other side of the fence? Yeah. I love that. Jeff's always good for the good question. Just the meat and potatoes question. So Brian or Bruce, I'll let you start with that one, my friend.
Yeah. I think that's great.
So can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I adjust my mic. Is it too loud? No. Okay. So I would take somebody that has industry knowledge and over somebody that doesn't have any industry knowledge at all, hands down, right? You know the ins and outs, you know how things are running versus somebody straight out of college or high school. You know, I think it is possible. Like, so uncovering that need through a series of questions, uncovering that need through, persistent communication, not just they said no and I'm done, but yes, it is possible to train somebody from an operations side into sales.
Sorry, I didn't realize. I don't know if you just froze there, Bruce, or whatever. So operationally, I think operations people, when they're driven, when their desire is to get into sales, I think they make some of the best salespeople on the planet, because operationally is really how every customer is kept. Right? As a salesperson, you can land a customer all day long if your operations team or your operations or you or the company, the way it's structured, that's how customers are lost. It's through operations, because operations completes the goals. Like, let's face facts. You know, Ryan put in the comments here, costs money to change incumbents, 100%. Yes. How many times have we said to everyone on this show, like, listen, you got to put yourself in your customer's shoes. Right? A visual decision. They're using an incumbent, and Bruce, you hit the nail on the head a couple minutes ago. You know, they're maybe okay. Like, they can put their head down at night and not worry too much, but they're like, I wish this was better. I wish that was better. I wish this was better. But in the end, you come in here, you're like, dude, I can rock the shit out of this for you and make this happen. And they're like, okay, you're the thousandth person that has said that to me. And every time, again, every traffic manager, every logistics manager, everyone that you get business from, when they make a decision to use you, it is the most visual decision in the company at that given moment. Because if there's little ripples like this, and you come in and Murphy joins the party and there's a huge tidal wave, who do you think gets slammed? The traffic manager. Oh, well, I chose to use this guy because they promised me this or they promised me that. Oh, come on, man. Why would you break something that's not broken? We already have enough logistics and supply chain issues. You don't have to go, did you pick up the pay? Like, all of these things, like, it is a very interesting world in logistics sales right now. Very interesting. I'll tell you one thing. If you're not using reference letters for your customers to help sell you, you are losing. You are losing left, right, and center, because think of it. A customer will trust your customer 1,000,000 times before they trust you. They don't know you. But if this person is a shipper, and Jeff, I know you were on that side of the fence. You were a shipper. Yes. You tell us in the comments how important it was to you if a salesperson called you and said, oh, and by the way, I told you I can do this. Here's 10 reference letters. Call my customers. What did that do to their credibility? I'd like you to hear that.
Dan, I think you hit the nail on the head with what you just said. And I just want to sum it up with this. Anybody who played sports or played football, especially football, after the game, we always watched the tape. Obviously, the pros do it, but we watch video. The last thing you want to do is be called out, especially if you're in one of those key positions, quarterback, one of those things, and you're getting called out for some stupid shit. Like, you're like, you are so embarrassed. You are the center of attention, and you are getting called out for the wrong thing. And if you could flip that mindset and remember that feeling, if anybody's ever gone through that, like I have, and you put that mindset in your customer's view of, oh my God, if I screw this up, if I don't have the right solution, if I can't do it, everything that I'm saying, and it does cause those huge ripples like Dan's talking about, what are you doing to that person? And you just really have to think of that. You have to think of that.
And I got one more thing to say here. So the cool thing about what we do, right? What Dan and I do is we help coach people in sales, logistics, leadership. I coach a guy named Jay Butler, played in the NFL, played for Ravens, played for the Giants, never sold a dang thing in his life, right? He was the product of his life for years. Now he's a freight broker, right? So if you're coming from an operations side, if you're coming from the NFL, if you're coming from anywhere, the cool thing about sales is that the skill set is learnable, trainable, and teachable, right? You can learn to be a salesperson. What you can't learn, and well, you can, but it's a lot harder, is that drive, is that internal motivation to succeed. That is, so if you're thinking, I'm thinking about maybe becoming a broker one day, check yourself at the door, right? Have an honest discussion with yourself of like, look, this is no easy ride. There's so many flashy Instagram pictures and YouTube things and all of people making millions and millions of dollars in transportation. It's this lavish lifestyle. Yes, that happens, right? Dan and I and DJ, we're living products of that. But the millions of people that tried it and didn't succeed, it's that internal drive, that internal fire to not give up. So if you come from the operations side, if you come from the NFL, if you come from anywhere, like, yes, we can teach you how to sell. We can teach you how to present, overcome objections, closing techniques, all that stuff, account penetration, building out systems. That's teachable. What's not teachable is in here.
Well, and not to go against what you said there, Bruce, but I will say, just for me, guys, here's the thing: sales. I think we overcomplicate it to think that there's certain tricks that there is, or trick word, or trick phrase, or something that just magically we can do. There's no magic. Here's the magic. You want the magic? You have to actually believe and be passionate about what you're selling. Believe. You have to actually believe, not say you believe it. You have to actually believe it. Everything I've ever sold, I either wanted so bad I couldn't, but I maybe couldn't afford it, or it just wasn't right for me, or I had it because I believed in the product I was selling. So once you believe in your solution, it's easy. Then now you just have to believe that you can actually help that person. That's all sales is. That's literally all it is. But you have to have a passion for what you're doing. And I think that's the bigger key. With sales, passion is people. You have to want to help people.
Well, we talked about sports, right? So you talk about Olympic athletes, you talk about professional athletes. The passion is in the practice. And how many times do you do a play to do it once in a game, once a week? And as a salesperson, this is why very competitive people make great salespeople. This is why people in sports can make great salespeople, because they already have that trained in them to practice more. Edge. And you think about it, you make 100 phone calls. Nowadays, you're maybe connecting with 5 people. Otherwise, you got 95 voicemails. So you have to have that desire to say, okay. And here's the thing. The mindset is everything. So your desire is, okay, I have to go through 95 voicemails to get 5 people. But when I get those 5 people, oh my God, it's on.
Oh, that game over. I'm going to change your life.
100%. Jeff says one thing here. So he says, Dan, you're right. It does open the door. However, what do you know about me, my company, and how does your logistics experience align with mine? So Jeff, that reference letter actually comes after that, because if I were just to hit you with a reference letter, it'd be totally useless, because I could have a reference letter saying, Dan's the greatest person on earth. He is a little expensive, but he gets the job done, and you're only looking for rates. So that reference letter is afterwards. What I was talking about is more breaking down that wall to say, okay, this person is the real deal, and what they say they can help me because I need the help from my present incumbent. They can, because other people have backed them up. So I apologize.
Yeah, good point to use a reference letter would be in the presentation or answering objections.
Yeah, exactly. And does a reference letter have the same value as Google reviews? That's a great question, Antoine. I do know statistically a lot of people look at Google reviews. However, Google reviews are more company based. So maybe if they have your
company
name
and
in
product
it,
based more.
People ask, do a Google review on our company. So from a hey, is this a stand-up company perspective? Yes. But if you take an example like a large brokerage firm, right? You'll have some really good brokers, some really good operations people, and you'll have some absolutely horrible people that use and abuse everyone they touch.
Yeah.
Right.
Reference letter is a little more personal too.
I think, and reference letters specifically is this, right? So here's a little trick for all y'all and any of y'all involved in Inception or anything, this, or anyone that's been working with me forever. 3 questions. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? Mm-hmm. You get those 3 answers. And what you're going to find is if you get a yes, you're amazing on all 3, you ask for a reference letter. That reference letter, focus on what are we doing right? Mm-hmm. Like, did you do a big project that went off without a hitch? Did you help the customer achieve something? So what are you doing right? Oh my God, every decision you make is just strictly focused towards my goals. That's the reference letter. And if you go through your entire customer base and for now and for the next 3 years, and every customer you get, you go through the same thing, but you have reference letters specific to the things you've accomplished, not just, Bruce and his team are awesome at what they do. Yes. I'm talking specific, Bruce and his team. Yes. Yeah. We had a project where there was 150 loads. They had a 99.8% on time rate. And the only reason they were 1 late is because of a road closure or something. Yeah, we went off without a hitch. The contractors were awesome. Now Bruce can use that reference letter for his next project customer because it's a project specific. This is the difference between strategy and carpet bombing. When you're strategic about a reference letter, it hits home directly in the customer's issues. So if the customer's got an issue with capacity and you were able to provide capacity because of your relationships, that's the reference letter. So I hope that makes sense, Antoine.
Yeah. And with a Google review, that's kind of passive, right? You're relying on the customer to go out and actually look at it versus sending them a reference letter or a testimonial, which is proactive.
Google, I will say the reviews are obviously crucial. So if your company does have the ability, I would definitely get your customers to leave Google reviews. Obviously, we'll support your company. But.
So why do brokers hire people entering the industry for the first time? Well, great question. So here's my perspective on it from what I've seen in the industry. A lot of times these people are hired because it's one of these things where they're paid really cheap. And even if they land one customer and decide to leave, the company can keep the customer and make back the money. I don't think I think it's a really stupid business decision to just go in and do that. But I think that's the underlying thought is we hire a couple of people that are coming cheap. They're 20, 21-year-olds. You can pay them the bottom dollar because they got school debt or something. So they're just happy to have a full-time job, whether it be a stepping stone to another level of their career or whatever it is. But you know what? At this point, they land 1 or 2 clients. We haven't lost a dime, right? Whereas sometimes, and again, I'm speaking generally, you go out and you headhunt somebody that's doing 15, 20 G's a week. Most of the time, 50% of the business comes, but so does big lawyer fees for fighting the lawsuit, right? So there's headaches on both sides, I guess. You have the new person where it's like, oh my gosh, you got to put them through all this, teach them from the ground up. What's an 18-wheeler? Well, there's actually 18 wheels, like how much does it weigh? What are the skid? But again, like Bruce said, that's all teachable. So there's different methods to people's madness. I've often had a bunch of people tell me, the sweet spot is somebody doing $3,000 to $5,000 a week because they don't really pay attention to them from a legal perspective, but they're bringing in instant revenue to cover their salary. So there's different strategies for different peoples, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think there's a calculated risk that goes along with that. One being, you do capture people that are young that don't have any experience to mold them or train them into that position. But again, what Dan just alluded to is they're in there for the wrong reasons. They're in there because they have debt, because it's a full-time job, because they think they can make a lot of money and do everything. When I was interviewing people at TQL, you don't want to know how many times I heard I would do anything for $100,000 a year. I'd do anything. I'd push my grandmother down the stairs. But then when the rubber met the road, they didn't show up. Right.
They're like, I didn't get it this week. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. That's just too hard.
It's funny because
you want me to do what?
You start thinking of this, right? So I remember at one point I had probably close to 45 salespeople under me that I was working with and training through different parts of the company in different provinces. And I remember having in my office, there was 17 in my specific division. And I remember sitting down with the one guy and I said, okay, so what's the big vision? He says, I want to be a metallurgist. And I said, what? And he goes, well, I want to be a metallurgist. I go, what are you doing here? He goes, I just need a job to pay off student debt. And I'm like, and like, so for me, I sit there and I say, you went to school for metallurgy? He goes, yeah. And that's a pretty specific industry. Like, we're not just talking, I want to be in operations or I want to be a warehouse manager. Like, metallurgy is very specific.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I've never even heard of it until you told me.
It's like mining and minerals and all this and rock and everything. Like, it's a friggin' cool. My neighbor used to be a metallurgist and he was like massively like big dollars in metallurgy. And I said, well, what are you doing here? He says, I just need a job to pass the time. And I remember because I went to my manager and I said, why are we hiring? Then I had another girl come in my office, like literally one after another. I said, okay, what's your big vision? She goes, I want to own a cupcake bakery. I'm like, what the hell are you doing in logistics? Like, where do you want to talk two ends of the spectrum? And I went to my manager and said, what are you doing? Like, why are he goes, well, they close one account, they've paid them and then they leave. And that's no big deal. But so me, I was like, well, why don't you hire people that want to be in logistics? He goes, Dan, when has anyone ever said, I want my career to be logistics? Because it was never really that. I mean, I fell into it. DJ, you fell into it. Bruce, how did you get in the industry? Did you fall into it too?
Fell into it. Yeah. They
how many people
taught a class at college and they were like, hey, we're having internships. We'll pay you $10 an hour. And I was like, I mean, I'm not that old, but at the time that was way more than I was making before. I was like, let's do it. All I got to do is pick up the phone and make some phone calls. Yeah, cool. And then I fell in love with it. So yeah.
Yes.
That's funny. Oh, so we have Joshua. Joshua, I can't wait till you get on the show, my friend. So Josh, guys, I got to give it up to Josh here. Give him a shout out.
Yeah.
He is preparing for a 33-mile run to his office. He wants to run to work from one end of Michigan. Almost.
Good for you.
You saw that yesterday that I commented on DJ on LinkedIn. Yeah. So we're going to have Joshua on the show because if you want to talk about preparation and dedication, like have you guys ever seen that Homer Simpson when he ran like 6 feet and he put his hands on his legs and he's like, right? That Simpsons episode. So I looked at Josh's map yesterday and I swear I had heart palpitations. I started to lose my breath and I just kind of bent down like Homer Simpson and put my legs
100 miles.
100-mile run. Did I say 33 miles? Oh, it was 33 hours. It was like, so it's, yeah. So anyways, very truly said, Dan, clean slate versus 23 years plus experience, 100%. So Jeff says, so companies in essence don't care about their reputation when they do this. When they do what?
So Jeff, I think I know where you're going.
Oh, yes. He's talking about hiring people Walmart, and then just letting them
Amazon.
go.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, and you know what, Jeff?
Either you go cheaper prices and you don't really care about what you're doing for the other person, or you actually care about the value you bring.
But I think Jeff was talking about the bringing people in if they close one account and lose, and 100%. It's, gosh, I mean, almost everyone you talk to will say their company has done that, which is crazy. But unfortunately, it is what it is. Yeah, especially in today's day and age, it's crazy. Believe in product is so true, 100%, Jeff. So Joshua said, I think if it comes from looking at every call as practice, the more calls I make, the better prepared I am to handle a call with somebody who actually has freight. Absolutely. And here's the thing, Joshua, I'll add to that. Every time I got a voicemail, I tried to leave a better voicemail. Like, and I'll, complete transparency, maybe 1% of the voicemails I left over 28 years actually got returned, because how many people actually return voicemails? But if you just try, right? Like, just like, you go to the driving range to hit golf balls. Do you just hit golf balls to warm up, or do you say, I'm aiming at that flag? Because if you just hit golf balls to warm up, you are never going to get better, because you're not putting intention behind every swing. And if you're not putting intention by every word, every interaction, every dial, every email, everything, then you're losing. Like Joshua preparing for a 100-mile run. If it just got out there and kind of jogged for 3 minutes and then walked for 2 and then jogged for 3 and said aimlessly, I don't know where I'm going to go today, I'm just going to go around the block, he would never get a 100-mile run done. You have to prepare for that. We'll have Marcus Ogden on shortly, but Marcus was a Baltimore Raven as well. Yep. And he says, Dan, football is a business. It's not a sport. It's a business. And the business is the top performers win. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Olympics,
Dan, I'm
same
so
thing.
glad. I'm so glad you said that, Dan, because again, yes, you nailed it. The whole Vince Carter thing. The whole I'm listening to that book for like the millionth time, but it takes what it takes. You can't get to that level. We can't lie to ourselves. Even with the greatest talent, even with the greatest whatever. Like there's again, they've. Mike Glennon, I just heard about him, and whoever he was the backup for, they thought he had all of the untangibles. I was Russell Wilson, and thought he would have been better than Russell Wilson because he's 6'5" and he's this and that, and he's all of the things that make a prototypical quarterback, but he didn't have this that Russell did, and that's what it comes down to as well.
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
There's also you have to be dedicated, and your dedication to it. Again, the story of Vince Young or whoever it was, Lamar. I forget.
No, Vince Carter. Vince Carter, he knew, I can't go out with the team. I have to go to bed early. I have to wake up and hours before everyone else. But he was like 45 when he was still playing competitive.
And
he was playing against 20-year-olds.
Even he was smart enough to know if I do a dunk. Because he asked him, why do you do layups? If we've seen your crazy dunks. You're dunking over 7 feet guys in the Olympics. Why aren't you dunking now? If I do a dunk, it's going to take me 2 to 3 minutes because of all the pressure that it takes to get back down court. I'm going to be slow. I can't respond to defense. He's thinking all of this. Look, we can't lie to ourselves. It's just.
To be fair, Vince Carter sucks. Ryan. Ryan, I think wasn't a couple of weeks ago you said that he was awesome. So
listen.
Ryan, who was it?
He was up there in your guys' neck of the woods.
He was a Raptor, and I think Ryan doesn't like him because he left. Hold on. Let's just get through some of these comments because they're really good. Every morning, you guys make me want to go play something. I love it. The nice thing about logistics is it can be very process-oriented operation. So when I'm hiring, I focus on attitude and energy because I can teach skills 100%, Joshua. Yes. You can't coach a good attitude or willingness to improve. There was a big sign at the company I used to work at. It says hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yep.
Every day when you walk down the stairs, you stare at that as you walk down the stairs. I thought it was perfect placement, and it's so true.
I love it. And just the most basic quote. I'm going to give you a free quote out there, y'all. But everything's difficult before it's easy. Everything. Everything you've ever done, from working to anything, is difficult until it's easy. Only way it gets easier is by continuously doing it and trying and trying and trying.
Well, speaking of the quote, DJ, we are 42 and a half minutes.
Listen, I got a good one.
30-minute show, but it was such a good one. Thanks, Bruce, for being here. DJ, did your quote you picked come down this line, or did you set up that last quote for this quote?
I even got some bonus quotes because I didn't realize. Zig Ziglar, listen, performance planner. I'm giving a shout out. Maybe Zig will love me or something at least for this. But Zig Ziglar planning even has quotes up here at top. I didn't even notice that. But so I happened to notice this one yesterday, and so I actually picked this out yesterday, Dan. that's all.
Nice. Okay, let's hear it.
But so, anyways, thank you guys. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you everybody for all of your comments. Thank you, Bruce, for joining us, for all of your feedback and what you do, and just all the knowledge. Again, like and subscribe down below if you're watching this on YouTube. The little bell, and so you get notified when we're live. We are live Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Start your day right with us, right here. American and Centurion Trucking, thank you guys for making this possible. Quote to take us out, again, is by our man Zig. And Dan, obviously, thank you for joining me every day to do this fun thing, because this is so fun.
It's rock and roll, buddy.
What do you get by reaching your destination is not nearly as important as what you will become by reaching your destination. Love the process, guys.
Welcome to the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversation,